So first of all, absolutely excited to be here. Thanks for the invitation. Um, so while I was talking to Dr. Yogesh about some of the interesting things, but let me first talk a bit about, you heard Anand, and I don't think I'm anyone to speak after Dr. Anand. But since I'm put on the spot, I will at least take employees. The growth has been phenomenal. And in my entire history, in my entire career, I have never experienced this kind of a maddening growth. In the last about 3 years, we have doubled in every aspect, every dimension. Right? So about 3.5 years back when I joined this company, we were about 10,000 employees. And then today we are 24,000 employees. We were $500 million exactly 3.5 years back. Today we are 1 billion plus, right? So for us, I mean, the question that Yogesh asked was probably I have so much more beyond what we actually did through this scaling up and also during pandemic. So from the learning function point of view, every year I have seen a completely different organization, right? Because of the kind of 35% year on year growth, it was never enough that whatever that we were doing was right or wrong. But every year, as Anand was also saying, we were actually getting into a new orbit almost every year. So for 10,000, we did a few things. When we were 15,000, we had to do different things. And today we are, last year we thought whatever we invested in our infrastructure, people, etc., was enough. But now in this FY25 that we are in, I think we have to do again something very, very different. So just to keep up with the whole, pace, there are a few things that we did right. And one is, as an organization, let me first talk about Persistent Systems as an organization. I think one thing which I have seen, which probably got us here where we are today, at such a rapid pace, is the agility and the change. The amount of changes that we have undergone in terms of our systems, processes, infrastructure, and people has been absolutely phenomenal. In the last 3 years, I have seen, there are different leadership roles that we have created. There is a new leadership that we actually brought in from outside, because it was very clear that people who actually managed the organization when we were at 5,000, 10,000, very clearly, we wanted people who have managed companies with, 50,000 and, 1 lakh kind of a head count. And that is what I have seen happening rapidly in Persistent. And that is what I think is probably one of the reasons why we could actually scale up. I remember 3.5 years back, and when I sit through some of the board meetings, the question was, what are XYZ companies doing? Because at that time we were just talking about getting to $1 billion. And now the things have reversed. Everyone wants to know, what are you guys doing in Persistent, right? So, and what is your secret sauce? So I think multiple things have happened. As I said, I think we have done the right things at the right time in terms of getting the right people on board. From the learning and development point of view, I think one of the things which we realized, and I was actually talking to Mr. Pawar a few minutes back, and that was my question to NIIT, that, when we look at the Udemy and Coursera's of the world, where does that fit into your SWOT analysis? I mean, is that a threat or it's an opportunity, right? And all of us, I think when we cross a certain scale in terms of the number of people, it's practically very, almost impossible to reach out to every soul in the company with the right set of trainings. And that is where even we decided to go ahead and invest in platforms like, Degreed and of course the content providers like Udemy, Coursera, etc. One of the greatest things which I have seen, at least when we onboarded the LXP, I don't know how many of you have experienced the learning experience platforms like Degreed and Edcast, and there are few. Degreed is by far, I think, the best at this moment. It actually has the AI engine that runs behind the scene, which exactly knows who is the user, and it personalizes everything for you on the fly. Right? So I think that is probably the earliest adoption of AI that I have seen, very effectively done, and many others are doing it now. Even LinkedIn is coming out with similar platform and so on. So I think that is one thing which we immediately did. Second is, we when we start scaling up, there has to be something for everyone in the company, and we quickly put together a technical competency framework, which was absolutely essential for us to make the learning process meaningful, as well as create a purpose. And at least as a L&D professional that I am in for last 6-7 years, one of the biggest bottlenecks that I have seen for all of us is, if there is no purpose, there is no learning. I mean, you will not see people signing up for any kind of exciting program if they don't see any purpose behind it. So that is one thing which, at least as a learning and development function, we have ensured that we always create a very well defined purpose behind every program that we design, whether it is internal, external, or whether it is through StackRoute or even the hyperscaler certifications. So there has to be a purpose. And the second thing, which I will then, answer the question that Dr. Yogesh asked, is the outcomes. And that's another, million dollar question that we grapple with. What is the business outcome? Why should, what is that you're going to gain out of whatever training certifications that you do? So one of the interesting things which actually really pushed us, some of us, from the leadership point of view, is there was a question asked in our board that, do you have a ROI model from the L&D point of view? And, as usual, we would typically, go to Kirkpatrick and whatever else that is available, look at level 3, level 4, and all of that. But actually, that was not enough. So what we did, we actually came out with an ROI model, where we actually defined the business outcomes and we quantified them in the dollar value. And that actually really helped us to be much, much more sharper than what we were earlier. The program that we are doing with StackRoute is for our architects at a certain level. So we call something like flagship programs. So there is a role-based training certification that we have pretty much at the key major grade changes that we have, and they are linked with the career progression. So one of the programs with StackRoute is called Propeller, and the whole idea and we have given this fancy names like, Falcon, Anchor, Avenger, and one of them is Propeller, which is with StackRoute. The idea is to create the senior architects in the organization. And the best part is, when we started working with Dr. Yogesh and Dr. Priya, and I remember, I had just joined, and we started working on this program. We designed a program, and then the next year, when we do the manager feedback, employee feedback, and then also starts looking at what has it really given us as an organization, and is there a business outcome? We realized that there are many things which need to be changed. And we went through an iteration, and you will not believe, this is probably the 4th iteration that we are doing. We are in the 4th year of that program. And that is one thing which I have realized, that, we really cannot have any program that is static. So almost every year we have undergone, major changes, revamp of this program. Another wonderful idea what was brought out by a StackRoute team was, we didn't have anything beyond the Propeller program. So once an individual becomes an architect, and as Anand was saying, and this is one thing that I think many of Indian organizations don't recognize and encourage, is the individual contributors who are techies, right? And I remember my earlier Motorola days when I was in Chicago. I used to see one of the very senior gentlemen sitting in one corner office, and he was an individual contributor. And I would always wonder, and I was a bacha that time, right? So I was primarily doing system testing and automation. I was wondering, ye kya karta hai yaar? I mean, he's such a senior guy, and his ID was golden, okay? And there was something that such contributors who were actually tagged in Motorola, and they were called as principal architects. And then I saw this man in action when any crisis, technical crisis, the only one person, go-to person was this person, right? So I think that is one thing which we are also realizing. I am realizing that we probably don't have that culture here in India, and that's the reason I like the model that was proposed by the Stackroot team. That can we break that propeller program into say 4 levels? You start with some foundation, intermediate, and so on, and then you really create again purpose, as I said, and a learning path for very senior techies in the organization, right? So that's one thing that we are actually doing. And just to close out on what I started talking about was the whole business outcome. We started defining some business attributes and outcomes to every program that we design, and we started measuring that, and everything was quantified in dollars, right? So for example, if I'm certifying 5,000 people in hyperscalers, which is basically the GCPs and AWSs of the world, how many of these actually lead to closing the internal open positions, right? Or rather closing the positions that are open internally. And that directly translates to a dollar saving, right? So if I say close about 700 positions internally, then I'm directly saving $1.5 million for the company. So that is how we actually kind of created that model, and that has suddenly created a lot of value in what we are doing. So with that, I just thought I'll just share some of our experiences, what we have done, and again, as I said, we are in FY25. We are looking at another orbit, as Anand said, and we hopefully will get there. But thanks, Dr. Yogesh. If there is any question, I would be happy to answer.
Yes, I have one question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Manoj, this side, Harsh. I have one question for you.
Yeah.
So Manoj, I wanted to ask you that as an organization, what is your strategy in order to make sure that the top leaders of your organization stay updated about the changes that are rapidly happening in the technology industry, right? Because I do understand many times they have to interact with customers, so they have to be very well versed with the changes. Although they need not to be have zoom in understanding of the technology, a very high level view, because so that they can converse with customers. So what is your strategy that you're following? Because I understand if you kind of give them, let's say, some Udemy courses or some Coursera,
not going to work.
I'm not sure whether they will do it or not, but in order to make sure that we have a good culture, and it should come from top to bottom. So what is your strategy that you're following, if you can throw some light?
Yeah, so I think there are a few simple things that we do. It's very hard to get so many people together and get that attention span from all of them, even for an hour, right? So we have a very nice practice, which I was also personally impressed. We have a session which happens almost every month, where there are all 200 plus senior leaders from across the company, across the globe. They're brought together. Our CEO and many times even Anand join those sessions, and we invite people from internal and external organizations. Even we use that forum for any acquisitions that are done, to kind of have those people come and talk about. Like last few years, we acquired a couple of Google and Microsoft boutique companies. So that is one thing which we have seen working really well, because then the moment CEO and Anand is there, everyone joins that meeting, right? So that has worked for us. We use that meeting where there is a focused 1 hour, 1.5 hour attention, where and there have been series of Gen AI related sessions that we have done. There is second thing that we do is there is something called as a Friday meetup, as we call it, where we invite again external, internal speakers, and that is it's an open house, so anybody in the company can actually join. Thirdly, we partner with IIMs and ISBs of the world, and now we are also looking at Harvard and few others, where we would select few leaders on some of these digital transformation kind of programs. So these are some of the little things that we do. We also use the town halls for, again, get the industry reputed speakers to come and talk about some of these breakthrough technologies and so on. So these are some of the simple things that we do. And of course, we'll do something different this year as well.
Okay, one last in addition to this only. Generally,
I'm sorry, but I think Manoj is here.
I'm here
we
in
can
the
take
evening, and I think after
questions.
8 o'clock will be the right time to actually talk about
sure,
many
sure.
more.
I'll see you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Manoj. Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks a lot.